Aloha! Welcome to his 40th birthday, presented by Halekulani, and our discussion with filmmaker Katia Kalei Bariklo. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Bariklo.
yeah.
Okay, fantastic. She is director of Longing for Hawaii. We'd like to extend our mahalo to the Nichols Family Film Fund, Film Hawaii, and Pacific Islanders in Communications for sponsoring this program and our Mid-in Hawaii short section today. My name is Kiara Lacey, and I am zooming in from Kaimuki, Hawaii, the land of the Kanaka Maoli. Katia, where are we reaching you from?
I am in Pennsylvania right now, actually.
Awesome. Quick housekeeping bits before we get started. Program updates for all you people in the internet world interested in knowing up-to-date information about the program for HIFF and the full schedule of films, events, and talk story sessions and Q&As. Go to hiff.org, HIFF.org. And don't forget audience award voting. Participate in Hawaii News Now's audience award votes by going to hawaiinewsnow.com/HIFF to cast your vote on your favorite narrative, documentary, and short film. And our big mahalo to Hawaii News Now for their support. And without further ado, let's talk about Longing for Hawaii. When I was asked to chat with you about your film, I got excited because we can have two Hapa girls chatting about the Hapa experience in regards to your film. And as somebody who's part Hawaiian, part Chinese, and part Irish, French, and all those things that so many of us who have ties back to Hawaii can claim in terms of their multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial backgrounds. I really connected with a lot of the discovery in your film, and was just curious, like what got you started on this journey to making Longing for Hawaii?
Yeah, so I have been writing about my Hawaiian heritage for as long as I can remember, just as a mode of like self exploration and a search for identity. And so when I went to college, I saw that there was a documentary class, and the minute that I saw the description of the course, I knew I needed to do something about my Hawaiian heritage. So it just turned out into this year-long search through family history for me, and just history in general of the Hawaiian Islands and just all of that. Yeah, so that's how it started.
And it's a really personal film. I can speak to experience. I have tried doing work with my own family, and anyone who knows me knows it's been kind of a funny journey. So I'm curious, what was it like, not just excavating your personal history, but working with your family? How did you approach that process?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think I have been also a photographer forever, so my family is really used to me like always having a lens in their face. Um, and I think that, being a member of the family, this was something that we discussed a lot, like Hawaiian history, colonial erasure, and just this idea of this split identity, and how much, growing up and living here in Pennsylvania, all of us just felt this ache for just family and just the land and everything. So I definitely knew the parts that I wanted to get my family to talk about. So I think that they, I was really lucky for them to be able to open up to me because we were family. So I tried to use that to my advantage. And then just other than that, I just kept like following them around with my camera, and they eventually forgot that it was there. So that was helpful.
In terms of so much of your film is about identity, diaspora, and this somehow powerful but at the same time ephemeral connection to Hawaii as an indigenous person. I was curious because I even find myself toggling, having lived in other places, and I might be here now, but seeing how other people connect back to this place. Where do you call home?
That's a really good question. I think that something that I figured out a lot while making this film is that I don't I don't really feel that I could choose something like that. And so instead of it being like an or, for me, it's like an and. Like my home is the East Coast and Hawaii. And I think that that is just like true to my experience.
That is one of my favorite answers. I might have to steal that if that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like so often we're connect or like it's enticing to think the answer has to be singular, but so many things can coexist. And if we're going to talk about Hapa identity, right, or multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial identity, then the inclusion of more than one thing and more than one answer is actually okay. And you know, taking this back to, you know, your process in the film, I'm curious, you know, it sounds like it's an intimate film. It was an excavation of your family's personal history. What does your family think about the film?
They love it. My grandmother, especially, she really enjoys the spotlight. So she like, you know, calls our family and is like, Katya made a film about me. Like, so that's really sweet. But I think just, I actually got to screen it at my family reunion to all of my extended ohana there. And that was really rewarding because a lot of them cried, and just being able to hear them laugh at everything, particularly because they knew the people in it. I think that was one of the most rewarding experiences in making this film.
And I'm excited for all of the audiences at HIFF to be able to watch your film as well. I think there's some really powerful layers to it. And I'm curious, knowing that your film is going to show as part of HIFF, what do you want HIFF audiences to take away from watching your movie?
I think I would want them to take away just a feeling of cultural pride and like reclaiming that heritage from far away, of learning about your identity and just not being afraid to learn more and just learn to cherish it.
That's beautiful. And I apologize if I'm hopping around a little bit. I'm excited. We had talked a little bit about your process in working with your family. I was also curious, you know, there's a lot of archival elements to your film. Was there any sort of, you know, in terms of how you collected and like chose what layers and how to present them? Did you have sort of a process or a philosophy in, when you approach those things?
I think my philosophy was kind of just trying to find the hidden gems. Like I feel like over the years I have had taken so many photos, like when I would visit my family. So there really was just an abundance. And then my grandmother gave me a lot of old family photographs. And I scanned, like it took me so many hours to scan all of them. But I just tried to pick the ones that were truest to the story of um, just showing my grandmother growing up, and then other ones that might display the idea of a split identity.
This isn't something we see in the film, and this is a little bit of an on the fly question, but I'm curious, was your grandmother always around, you know, when you were growing up? Was she always within like a close proximity to where you guys lived?
Yeah, so I have lived with her since I was 5. She lived with my mom and sister and I. And I think that that plays a really big role in the making of this film because, you know, when we would visit, a lot of times we would stay with my grandmother's sister, my Aunt Samantha, who is in the last scene of the film. She's one that I have the phone call with and who's like crying on the phone. Um, and I think something that's always really moved me was seeing my grandmother just, she would cry and tear up so much leaving her sister every single time. And I think that I've always really noticed that about her because she lived here with us. And one time I actually overheard her say to an auntie, just about how her identity is so split because she lives with us on the East Coast. And one auntie asked her, why don't you move back to Hawaii? And she said, because leaving the girls would be like leaving a piece of my heart, which is so beautiful. But I think that is like a huge thing that inspired this film, just growing up and seeing my grandmother be Hawaiian and like, you know, sing all these Hawaiian songs to us growing up, but then be here and just knowing how much she really misses the islands.
You brought up something I wanted to ask you about, which is the end of the film. And I in no means want to give away the ends, but I did really connect how you closed your film. And it brought up a question with, again, without giving away the end of the film. How did you know you were done? You know, and how did you decide, okay, this is how we're going to close out the movie?
Yeah, so I remember the day where I filmed the last scene so vividly. I knew I wanted to interview my Aunt Samantha because she played such a huge role in me being able to reclaim my Hawaiian heritage. Like, we always stayed with her. She lives in Hauula, and she just always welcomed us and always would say, like, even though you don't live here, like, this is your home too. And I think that was a hugely important thing for me to include in this film. And I was kind of disappointed I didn't have many pictures of her. I didn't have videos of her. And so one day I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna call her. And so I like set up my camera and everything. And I told her in advance that I was gonna call her. And I was on the phone with her for like an hour. Like, I was like playing the ukulele for her and everything. And then at the end of the conversation, that's the part that I ended up including for the most part. And I just remember after we hung up, I just knew. I was like, this is the last scene of the film. It was just like, I knew.
It was a beautiful, really emotional moment, and I thought such a nice way to like close your work. And you know, for everyone watching this, it's only just more fodder for you to get a chance to see the film. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to cover. And one thing was, of course, if there's anything else you'd like to chat about, I'm all ears. But one thing I was curious about is what's next. Do you have any future projects in mind? You know, whether it's a film or another form of art, since you are also a photographer. Just curious.
Yeah, so I made another documentary after this, called Ethel Lawrence, The Rosa Parks of Affordable Housing. And that one tells the story of Ethel Lawrence, who is from Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and she led this decades long, she was the plaintiff in a legal case that led to a huge change forever in the affordable housing movement. So my second documentary is about that. And then other than that, I just want to keep making films. I really like documentary. I want to try some narrative stuff, but I definitely see myself exploring more in the future about my Hawaiian heritage through film.
Well, I'm really grateful for the work you've done, and I'm looking forward to watching all the things that you make on the horizon. If we wanted to follow you, are there any places that we can keep in touch, or social media websites that we should be looking at?
Um, I have a Vimeo that's just my name, Katia Barrico. So my films will be there once I can make them not private anymore.
Awesome. Awesome. So everybody out there, go to Vimeo and check out Katia and her work, and follow her. I'll be sure to do that as well. And just want to say thank you for chatting and for the work that you've done. And want to thank everybody out there for watching our conversation today. A special mahalo to all of HIFF sponsors, board of directors, and our HIFF Ohana members. And if you're able, please consider donating to HIFF40 for 40, the fundraising campaign. Every dollar counts towards keeping HIFF presenting great content like Katia's work, Longing for Hawaii. And if you want to learn more, go to hiff.org/40 FOR 40 for 40. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Mahalo yao ko.